So this week we welcome Samantha to the podcast. Hello, Samantha. We're looking forward to hearing your story. So thank you so much for giving us the time. And Samantha's, for those that are listening, she's sat in a car. She said it's the quietest place in her life right now. So I won't ask what that's about, but yeah, welcome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I work with dogs, and so I figure here we're not going to be interrupted with any dog barking, and so I wanted to.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I get it. Yeah. Pets are always welcome. Pets, children, anything. No. So.
I love it. Yeah, well, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm excited to chat.
Excellent. Well, me too. So tell us about you. So, where you live, your fear of flying story, anything else you want to tell us, basically.
Yeah. So, I live in the United States. I born and raised in Pennsylvania, and I currently live in North Carolina. And I started to become terrified of flying when I was 13 years old. I had started to have panic attacks well, I can't remember which came first. I had them outside of flying, but it started around like the same time that I had my first panic attack on a flight. And that first panic attack, I just remember being a kid, and I remember something about like we were flying over a tornado or something, and I don't know if I made that up in my head or I'm not entirely sure what happened, but that's what I remember. And I remember just being scared because of that. And now as an adult, I understand tornadoes stay to the ground. They don't even come up in the air. So even if that was what happened, it was my childhood brain just went off in all these directions.
Yeah.
I was actually flying with my brother, and he was really scared too. And so I think the two of us both just kind of fed off each other.
Right.
And thus started this fear for my whole life from that first. And that was not the first flight I ever took. I had flown a lot as a kid, but for some reason that one flight just kind of triggered everything for me.
Yeah.
And every flight I had after then, and we flew quite a bit. I still would fly with my family, and we would go places, but I was always terrified. I was always so scared. I always had panic attacks. My mom would just have to like hold me, and I would be crying and sobbing, and it would just be this whole ordeal. And I really struggled with it. I really, really struggled with it. But I think the one thing about my youth was that I still kept going. And that was one of the best things I did. And I didn't even think about it back then, but it was just my family traveled a lot, and travel was important to us. And so I just kept going, and I kept doing it. And so while it was relatively debilitating, I never really thought I had an option to not go. And so and that was good. But it really wasn't until COVID, I feel like, that right before COVID, I had a really bad flight. I will say I had in my adult years, I had some good flights that were good.
Okay. Hang on a second. So we can't just let that go. Good flights, bad flights. What what? They didn't land. What are we talking about?
Okay. No. When I mean bad flight, I mean like panic attack. Like I was
bad for you. All right. Okay. I just need to be clear. Yeah.
All the flights landed. Everything was. I've never to this day had any type of. The worst I've had on a flight is a delay. Like that's the worst thing that's ever happened.
So you carried all this since you were 13, despite the flights being pretty samey. God.
Yep. I did. Yeah, and I did. Yeah, and it really wasn't. The worst flight I had was right before COVID. And that was kind of what changed everything for me, because when I say worst flight, it was a normal flight, but I had the worst panic attack I've ever had, where I literally was on the ground in the front of the plane, and I was basically passing out. I was so hyperventilate. Like I was panicked. I was so panicked.
Any particular reason why that one?
The only thing is we were flying out of Denver and flying.
Oh, that'll be it then. Right.
And so I think it was that triggered it, and honestly it was embarrassing enough that I think that's what pushed me over to be like, okay, I'm gonna do something about this.
Okay, so there's something else here. There's the shame thing, which a lot of people carry with fear of flying, don't they? And it can be a trigger, but can also exacerbate fear. That's really interesting. So this, what did you do with that? So that sounded like that was a turning point then.
So it was right before COVID. It was a turning point, but unfortunately with COVID, flights shut down. And so it was literally like the month before COVID hit. And so I remember I like went into therapy and I said to my therapist, I was like, I'm going to plan to go here, and then I'm going to plan to go here. And I had all these flights lined up for 2020, and then COVID hit. And so I had to cancel all my flights, which there was a part of me that was like, thank God.
Yeah, I bet there was a little bit relieved,
Totally. I was totally relieved, but at the same time, I was disappointed. And then I will say, when I finally was able to address it and fly for the first time, which it took about 2 years, I think, for me to plan another trip. So I think it was 2022, the first time I flew, which was probably, since I was 13, the longest stretch I've ever gone without flying was 2 years.
Right.
And that made it so much harder to come back around and face the fear. And that's like the one thing I've learned is I have to be consistent about flying, because that, as hard as it is, I know that when I'm consistent, it helps so much. So anyways, yeah, it was a turning point, but COVID kind of interrupted it. And so it kind of made it harder to come back around and face it. But I did. And that was actually when I found you guys. And that was when I found community around fear of flying. And I think you mentioned shame. I think I had so much shame, and I really didn't realize there were so many people out there who also were scared to fly. I really thought it was just me, because I had never met anyone else in my life who was scared to fly. My family, my friends, they're all fine with flying. And so finding community was huge. Like, that was the one thing that I feel like me into being like, yes, I can. I had a trip planned to Boston. There were 4 flights in total, and that was the one thing that kind of pushed me to that I could do it.
So Samantha, can I ask a question? So generally, I don't quite know what you would say, but so how does knowing other people with the fear help when you've been surrounded by so many people without it?
I think that knowing I'm not alone is a huge part of it. Like, and even the idea of knowing when I'm on a plane that there's probably someone else who is scared as well.
Yeah.
That just brings me like so much peace, honestly.
Why is that then? Why do you think that is? I mean, I can imagine why it is, but why do you think that is? You think, good, someone else is suffering. Is that what it is?
No, definitely.
It's just a joke.
I honestly think it's because there is so much, there's so much shame that we have, because like, I know flying is so safe. I know it. I know logically, I know all those things. I know all the things, and I know all that. But that doesn't really help me. What helps me, I feel like, is the validation that my fear is legitimate, and that I'm scared. And when other people are scared too, it kind of validates that for me, and it makes me feel it's okay. It's like, it's not the end of the world. Even if I do have a panic attack, it's actually not the end of the world.
Okay. All right. So that's quite a good sort of bottom. So we got this started at 30. We don't quite know why. There's a bunch of other stuff going on. You had these panic attacks. You kept flying up until right before the pandemic. And then with your big action plan, 1 or 2 months before COVID kicked in, that put it on hold for a couple of years. And then you came back. And so what made you look around for people like us?
That's a good question.
Is it? Thanks very much. Appreciate that. It's nice to get feedback.
I don't actually know. Like, I don't know how I found others, or like what drew me. You know what? I wonder if I had made a Facebook post about the flight attendant who helped me through the panic attack I had on the flight from Denver. And it kind of went like viral. Like, a lot of people were sharing it, because I had said how she was so helpful. She was so kind. She was so compassionate. And I was just like blown away by how she helped me through that flight. And it really inspired me and humbled me. And so I shared about it. And I have a feeling that's probably where I learned of other people, just other people commenting maybe, and then sharing the Lovefly community.
Right. Okay.
I think it might have started from that, potentially. Yeah. And honestly, that was probably the first time I ever like spoke publicly, like even just on my Facebook about my fear of flying. I never really talked about it. Like a lot of people didn't even know that I had such an intense fear of flying because I never talked about it. I would just hide and just pretend I was fine and pretend I loved travel, and really I hated the flying part.
Yeah, we become great actors, don't we? We're trying to sort of cover something. So I'm assuming then if you were having rough experiences on flights, that you would get anticipatory anxiety and all that stuff, disturbed sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, on the flights, were you able to? What did you do during the flights? What was your coping strategies?
Oh my gosh, I've tried everything. I don't think there's anything I have not tried. Oh my gosh. I mean, I remember when I was and none of my coping strategies back then were healthy. It's been since I've had the past couple of flights that I feel like I've developed so much more. Back then, oh my gosh, I remember I would like stay up all night and like not let myself sleep and then try to sleep on the plane. I would take like NyQuil and try to like sleep through NyQuil, which I do not recommend. Oh my gosh, not good. Once I was of age, I would drink alcohol. Don't recommend that. I took pills, like I did Ativan, like I tried everything. Honestly, nothing really and truly did the trick. I feel like what I have learned the past few years of having like the past year, I've had several good flights. And I feel like what I've learned is I pull from a lot of different things, and there's no one right thing. It's just a lot of different things. And I feel like much of what I do leading up to the flight, like a month before, that to me is the key. Like honestly, listening to the podcast, that I did that last year. Oh my gosh, I listened to so many episodes leading up to it, and that was super helpful.
Right.
And then just like building up, I meditate every day, and I just really will build up my meditation practice for several weeks before where I'll try to meditate longer and longer.
Okay, so I know this helps, but how does it help you?
It allows me to be present to like the physiological feeling of panic in my body, and allows me to not. I think a lot of times what happens with panic is it happens in our body, and we sweat and our heart races, and we get so like our adrenaline is going and cortisol is going, right? And when we feel that in our body, it makes us panic even more, and it starts this chain reaction. And so I have found that meditation allows me to notice when that first starts happening.
Right. Yeah.
Then be able to just be like, okay, I noticed my heartbeat. Right. And not have like a big reaction to, okay, my heart is pounding right now, and just be able to just notice it and then continue on. And the thing is, I have to practice that before I fly. And then, when I'm sitting at the gate and I notice my heart beating, it's helpful for me to just be like, okay, my heart is beating. It's just a physiological response.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. No, I was just curious because when people talk about it, and people say different things, but I'm just interested why you do it, how it helps. So that's useful. So we've got this. I've got an idea that you're doing this month, if intense work before flight. Is that before every flight that you have to do that?
Yeah, I try to, and I'm hoping over time it gets less and less. But
yeah.
Anticipatory stuff starts about a month in advance, and so I know I really have to like face it really and do something to cope with it in a healthy way.
For you then, the anticipatory thing, how does that play out? Like a month before is quite a long time, isn't it? So if it went unchecked, what would you be doing? Not doing.
If the anticipatory went unchecked, what would I do? Oh God, I mean, I'd be going into like ignoring, like I'd be going into like I don't want to deal with it, don't think about it, like shaming myself. Oh, I used to do that one all the time. I would have so many thought patterns of like, oh, everybody else flies and everybody else does fine when they fly, and everybody else can fly perfectly fine and have no problems, and I should be able to do that. And I would have those thought spirals for literally like weeks at a time, where anytime I would think of flying, that's what I would think, and I would try to convince myself. Whereas now it's like, if I'm able to notice that, to be able to just be like, okay, I'm scared. All right, like that's okay, and allow to kind of just be there, and the end of the world. Yeah, so definitely I would go into with the anticipatory anxiety, the thought patterns, and then just kind of go off on it. It would just it spirals and spirals and spirals, and then it builds up for weeks and weeks. And then definitely the few days beforehand, I mean, even still, the few days beforehand are hard. There's no doubt about it. But trying to address it, not ignore it. One of the things with the last flight that I did, that I kind of I realized, I think I wrote this when I signed up for this, but I realized that I've had these like patterns that I've been stuck in since I was 13, because this has been most of my life that I've had this fear. And it's just become a pattern at this point, where I'm just patterned to a month in advance start getting scared, and then a few days beforehand get even more scared, and then get to the airport get even more scared, right? Like that's become a pattern in my life. And so the last time I flew, I was like, okay, I'm changing patterns is what I'm doing.
Okay,
and
interesting.
Not to get rid of it, in one flight, but as each time I fly, if I can do this supportive build up, validating my fear, meditating, like all these supportive coping mechanisms, then ideally, in theory, I'm hoping that I can really change patterns and hit a point one time where the new pattern is I'm excited to fly, and I'm happy to fly. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there.
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, we don't want perfectly over it people. We want people that are sharing their journey with us. Excuse the pun, but so you're not the finished article yet, but you've done a heck of a lot, and you've had to overcome a lot of years of practicing how to be scared. So it's no small thing you're doing. So you said that you the month before you do the meditate, you said you go into the podcast and stuff. Yeah, have you got any that you particularly would recommend? Because some people coming in might happen upon your podcast as their first one they ever touch, and then they'll be like, "Oh crap, there's 180 plus podcasts. Where do I start?" What would you suggest?
The episodes with Geeta were really helpful for me. Like just listening to her, honestly, it was just her presence and hearing her talk was so helpful to me. Like I don't even know if there was there was specific stuff that she said, I remember, but like I don't know, her presence was so good for me, and it was so soothing to me. And so any of the ones where she's talking,
she's great. Yeah, she's great. And she's at some point in the future, she's working on at the moment, she's going to bring out some stuff that we're going to be in partnership with us. So some Geeta magic.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
It might be customer number one.
I'm in.
Yeah, she's great. She's been an inspiration for a lot of people. And we're lucky to have so many people in the group that are inspiring. That give their time, and wisdom, and stuff. And that's what you're doing now, by the way.
Trying.
Yeah, doing good. So keep going. So you recommend any with the Geeta, any others that you find helpful?
I believe there's one about takeoff, and I don't remember what it is, but I remember anything with takeoff for me is the hardest part. Takeoff is by far the hardest part of flying.
Yeah.
I hate takeoff. That might be the one that's going to take me the longest to get through is takeoff. So anything around takeoff and like the specifics of takeoff was really helpful for me as well. And even a lot of the like knowledge behind flying isn't always that most helpful for me, but behind takeoff, that is helpful. Like the sounds and all of that's happening. That's really helpful to me for sure.
Okay, that's good. So tell us a little bit more then what you do now in terms of your like when you took a flight? So you've had a couple of good flights, as you called them. So I'm interested to know, what did you do that you found particularly helpful that others could perhaps copy?
So one of the things I've tried to do, one of the biggest things, is I try not to just put my head down and get through it. I try to face it head on, even if I am feeling some panic come up. I try to allow it to move through me. And I try to connect with people around me. So the last flight I had was actually a really great flight. It was a pretty short flight, but I always tell the flight attendants that I'm nervous, because I have learned that just saying that and putting it out there helps. It just, for whatever reason.
Oh, interesting. So even if they're not particularly responsive, it doesn't matter. Just saying it helps.
Just telling them, just knowing that they know.
Yes.
Since I've started doing that, I've never had to have them like tend to me or deal with me at all. But they're just, I don't know. I think if anything, what it also helps me do is I find that flight attendants are amazing people. They're amazing humans. And just being able to connect with someone who like shares a smile and like makes a little bit of small talk in the beginning, like that it's really soothing to me. And so I always try to do that. And then I always, if the person next to me, it seems decent, I do try to talk to them too and just say hello. And I do also tell them, because during takeoff, I always put my head down and just kind of like, I have my little weird thing that I do where I kind of get like a little shaky and it seems like I'm panicking, but it actually kind of like helps me, where I kind of like shake my legs and like move my body a little bit, even shake my hands a little bit. And it helps kind of diffuse some of the nervous energy.
Yes, yeah, I can understand that. I mean, obviously, if somebody dancing next to me in the seat would raise an eyebrow, I'll be honest. I can understand. Oh my God, there's a woman dancing next to me. But yeah. But it makes sense.
I know it's totally weird. So I always tell the person next to me, I'm like, look, if you see me getting a little weird during takeoff, I swear I'm a normal person, but this helps me get through it.
Yeah.
And just so you know, it'll probably just be for takeoff, and then after takeoff, I do a lot better, and I just kind of hang out. So the last time I flew, I did that, and the guy next to me was so sweet. He was so nice. Nurse, and we ended up talking the whole time right before takeoff. And then takeoff happened, and I was like, oh, okay, we're taking off. And I did my little thing, and he actually put a hand on my back, and it was really nice. And I didn't expect him to do that at all.
Yeah.
It was a very sweet gesture, and it was very comforting. And then I moved through it, and then as soon as we got up into the air, I was fine. And I took off. I had headphones on. I took off my headphones. And I actually had a full conversation with him and the woman next to him too, and even the flight attendant came by to check on me. And it was great. And I was like, I'm fine, I'm good. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, I'm actually good. I'm totally fine.
So let's break that down. Okay, so although I was a bit lighthearted there, So the dancing, I understand that. It's like Lucy. So you do your prep beforehand. You increase your meditation. You listen to certain podcasts. Mainly, it seems like anything with Gita in it. Then when you get on the flight, you let the cabin crew know, which you find helpful because you're just verbalizing it. Then you're doing this thing where you're dispelling the kind of the cortisol and all the adrenaline by dancing about your seat. And then you're all right. Was that it then for the flight? There's something else that I missed is that I really felt like you go towards it, don't you? That's like, rather than sort of head down, you're actively in the present. That's what I got a sense of there. Is that correct interpretation?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that goes back into like the meditation practices that I have that allow me to kind of be present. But even if I'm feeling the panic come up, even with like some of the shaking stuff, which I know seems really weird, it actually allows me to be like, okay, I'm scared. All right, I'm really scared. And just literally just that acknowledgement of it, and not trying to like mentally push it away, and not trying to say like, oh, why are you scared? Like, you shouldn't be scared, right? And just allowing myself to be like, I'm scared, and even saying to the person next to me, hey, I might be really scared. And just like validating that allows me to face it. And it seems like it wouldn't work, but it does make it so much easier to face the fear. And even like, I don't know, there's times, especially during takeoff, where I just want to almost like dissociate. Like I just want to like not be there and just, I know a lot of people when they're scared, especially for takeoff, it's like, how can I distract myself as much as possible? But for me, I find that if I distract myself, as soon as I might zone out a little bit. It's like I used to play games and stuff, and I might zone out a little bit playing the game. But then as soon as I realize I'm on a plane again, the panic just comes back, and
of course. Yeah.
And so for me to be able to just like focus, and so the one thing I do is I do noise canceling headphones, because I have found the sound of takeoff, I think, is really triggering for me, and the sound is so loud, and so that's hard for me. But if I can cut that out, and be able to just kind of be with what's happening and not try to push it away and not try to distract myself, not try to play a game or focus on something else. It sounds crazy, and I'm sure people listening to this will be like, no way. But I swear it's really helped me a ton. And it's not to say I would never distract myself. It's not to say I wouldn't, but at least with takeoff, I try to face it because I know it's going to be over quickly. And again, like, yeah, there's a lot of different strategies, but I don't know. And I'm still learning. But I am finding that is helping. So
where are you getting your learning from? Is it from us, or is there other places you're going as well?
So I have a background in somatics. I'm a certified yoga therapist. And so I have a background in working with anxiety and panic in others. And so I have
the irony.
I know, right? It's hilarious. So I know how to do this stuff. It's so different though when it's such an intense fear.
Yeah.
It's honestly such a different thing, but that has provided me a lot. I think one of the biggest things that helped me was I did mindfulness-based stress reduction. The program by John Kabat-Zinn. And that's really, really, really helpful program to go through, and you can it's to help decrease stress, basically.
Okay, so just as a little link there, where is that an online thing, or is that face to face? How's that?
Both, I believe now. I believe they do it both. You can do it in person or you can do it virtually, as far as I know, kind of all over the world.
Yeah, I've done it as well, yeah.
Oh, no way. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, so in a couple of years, really, you've quite turned it around for yourself, haven't you? And, the people will be listening thinking, oh, yeah, that's all right for you. But what sort of words of hope can you offer out to people who may not be where you are yet? And I know you're not the finished article, I know, but you still kind of come a hell of a way.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I think the biggest thing is it's a journey, and the biggest thing I have to say is, like, do not avoid it. Don't avoid it. Don't run from it. Don't get on that plane. Go get on the plane. Do not get.
Samantha says, get on the plane.
I've never once regretted getting on the plane, and I have not wanted to get on the plane a lot. And every time I get on the plane, I don't regret it. Even if I do have a panic attack, or even if it is really hard, I don't regret it. And that's, I think, the biggest thing, is get on the plane and face it, and talk to people, and, put it out there, talk about it. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this, is because I'm like, I want to be able to talk about it more, instead of hide it, not be ashamed of it, but just let it be a part of me and my existence at this point. Hopefully at some point I won't even have to talk about it because I'll be so over it, but we'll see. But yeah.
No, it's great. And I'm very grateful for you given the gift of your techniques and your time. And I think it's also interesting just to I love the fact that this thing about the distractions, I'll say something about that.
Yeah.
So I see that some people find the distractions easy, and that helps them. And for others, it's not. I'm a big fan of the distractions are a short-term thing.
Yeah.
And really, you want to be in the moment because even the noise cancelling headphones, I'm a little bit on the fence about that because that can sort of remove that sense of being there. But if you are particularly noise sensitive, I can understand why you do that. And but I think all of these things are just the things that work for you. As long as you can recognise that these are things that are helpful, they don't have to be permanent. Because what happens is we're pattern makers, aren't we, as humans? So you replace a bunch of patterns and go, oh, right now, as long as I've got my noise cancelling headphones on, which are green, and I sit in this seat, and I just 3 people. So we just have to be careful we don't fall into any others. I don't think there's any danger in that. I think you seem super aware of what's going on, But I'm just saying that generally, not to you particularly.
Yeah. So totally. And I agree, because I've fallen into those patterns too. And I find it's not helpful when I have to do a certain thing. And I agree. I'd love to not have the noise canceling headphones at some point. I did take them off after takeoff during the last flight though. So I was like, that's a plus. That's
yeah.
Yeah, right. But I completely agree. I think that makes a ton of sense.
So I've been thinking about getting some, not for the fear of flying, but I think just I've got sick of hearing people's stupid talk. So I love all these sort of conversations. But when you go on planes or trains, you just hear people talking crap. I like to train that out, you know what I mean? But I'm worried that I'll never take them.
Yes. Oh my gosh. No, I know. I totally hear you. I get it.
Maybe I'm just turning into a miserable sod. Just turning into? Maybe always happy. Yeah, okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. So, Samantha, fantastic. What's next for you then in terms of what do you have left to work on, where are you next flying to, or where's your sort of I'm multi-questioning now, bad technique.
It's all good. So I'm hoping, my husband and I are hoping to be going to Canada in August, which will be a pretty long flight for me. And there's some things up in the air, but I'm actually excited about it, and I'm actually we're waiting to book it because there's some things happening that we're not sure if we're gonna go, but I'm like I want to go, and I'm ready to book it and ready to move forward with it because actually I've done a ton of solo flying, but my husband and I have been married for 2.5 years, and I've never actually flown with him.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
And so that's going to be my next thing, is flying with him and flying with someone that I love, and kind of getting over that hump too, because that'll be interesting. I'll just add a whole new layer to things.
You said I just want to clarify there. You just said flying with him and flying with some love. I just know if there's 2 people there or if it's the same one. Just checking.
No, yeah, no.
Just for clarity, yeah. So if you go over to Canada, just if you go to Toronto, you see a 6'5" Scouser walking about. That's John Bond. So say hello to him, because that's where he lives.
Perfect. We actually might have a layover in Toronto, so who knows?
Yeah, and he's very friendly, much friendlier than me. So people like him apparently. So he tells me. So yeah. So you got this trip to Canada. What else in terms of work to do? What do you think your next couple of things that you're going to be paying attention to, or doing more of?
I think one of the things I want to focus on is not just kind of back to what you were saying. I kind of have relied on needing to be in a certain part of the plane. And I actually, believe it or not, I like the back of the plane. I prefer to be in the back of the plane. I'm fine with the very last row. That's totally fine with me. And I don't like being in the front of the plane, believe it or not. And so I'm trying to, I think that's one of the big things to focus on for me, is just where I don't want to have to, I'd rather not have to pay extra for seats and just kind of be okay with wherever we end up, which that will be very hard for me. I think that, plus just focusing on takeoff as well, and moving through what comes up for me during takeoff, which is a lot of panic, and trying to, even though the past few flights I've had have been pretty good, takeoff has still been really hard. And I still find myself going into those old patterns of panicking, and I can move through it quicker now. And once we level out, I do much better, which is great. but I'd love to be able to do takeoff and not have all those, responses come up. I'd love to be able to just do takeoff and be like, okay, we're taking off, and like have it not be a huge deal. I think that's going to take some time, but that would be my biggest goal right now, probably.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
I like that. And I like the language. I like the fact that you sort of like what comes up for me. And, I love all that. That's brilliant. And it's a nice, healthy way to look at it. Just the sort of process of accepting and being curious, like what's happening to me? Nothing's not happening to that person, but why have I chosen? Why is my body chosen to react like this to that scenario with no one else's that I could see it? And I think that's a great avenue of inquiry. I really applaud that. Not that you need applauding, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, thank you. I appreciate that. It's good to hear that, to get that feedback. So thank you for that.
Wow, thank you. Well, Samantha, it's been really interesting to hear your story, and I'm really pleased. Let us know in the group when you do the Canada thing how that goes, and also if you sort of notice any wisdom comes up for you when you're going through the not sitting in the back of the aircraft, the takeoff thing. If there's anything that occurs to you that is helpful, please share it in the group like you've been doing, because that'd be great.
Yeah, will do. No, I find that the group is so helpful. The amount of support in there is like amazing. So guaranteed I'll be sharing for sure, because I need it too. Like before I fly, it's very helpful for me to share to people kind of supporting, and so yeah, for sure you'll be hearing from me.
Fabulous. Well, Samantha, thank you very much. Great little episode that was, and thank you for all your wisdom, your tips, and your positivity. And it's nice I like it when I get people who just have done a shitload of work, but they've still got a little bit more to do. That's kind of where you are. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Much appreciated.
I just meant to stop it now. There we go.